All right, guys, happy Friday. It's The Last Word, a Chrisman commentary weekly show here, wherever you're watching us today, whether it's on LinkedIn. Hey, LinkedIn, could be on YouTube. I think we're going to show up on YouTube, maybe even on Facebook. Who knows? But we are here. It is The Last Word, and I am joined by Courtney Thompson and the avatar of KP, who will join us momentarily on screen. Hey, guys.
Hey, happy Friday. How's your week, Brian?
My week was good. We'll do a little round robin on what we did this week. So I was in Nashville for the Tennessee Mortgage Bankers inaugural Loan Officer Summit, which was a super cool event. They did a 1 day, kind of a 3/4 of a day, just hyper focused content for loan officers. There's maybe 100, 125 folks there. And I got the pleasure of sharing some of my thoughts on next gen home buyers, and my partner in crime with the Green Book, Kyle Draper, followed my talk and just crushed it, talking about, all things showing up, physical and digital. So it was good. It was a good week. It was good to be in the field, if you will, with those that are pressing the flesh with our consumers every day. What about you, Courtney?
Pressing the flesh. That's an
Old school
interesting
term.
I
Old school
know.
term.
I feel like maybe we should have a Viking funeral for that phrase. We can set it on fire and let it go down the river and say that's a good one. What about me? I was not here last week because I was in, don't shoot me, KP, Austin, Texas, at a women's event that was hosted by the Orleans law firm and Service Link. It was quite nice. It was at the Miraval Resort. I actually do not frequent women's events in mortgage because women bring in the noise and bring in a funk in an energetic way that sometimes is a lot for me as a hardcore introvert. But it was a nice event. There was a lot of good learning there, and I went to Austin right off of the tails of going to DC for an event where we got to hear directly from some folks that are working in the current administration about where things are going to go. We got to listen to a wonderful, brilliant woman from Houlihan Lokey, is that how you say it, the law firm, about a lot of the deals that are happening in the market with a lot of consolidation of tech companies and other things like that. And then, of course, everyone's favorite topic in mortgage to talk about right now, insurance and the impact of the rising costs of insurance. So a lot of good things there, a lot of good learning. I'm looking forward to staying in one place for a couple of weeks before MBA secondary. KP, what about you? Where have you been?
I am here at the Mortgage Innovator Conference. We had a really, really good conference. I mean, overwhelmingly, and I'm not just saying that because I'm the co-chair of this conference together with Ike Siri. I mean, I've never had a show where everyone's walking up to me going like, this was great. This content was good. A lot of times you go to shows and it's like, yeah, this panel, that panel. It was unique. It was thought leadership. We brought in venture capital and private equity in our space to talk about how they think about, having checks written and what they look for. Clayton Collins, CEO of Housing Wire, was the moderator on that panel, and that was pretty cool. Neil Sahota is a UN advisor, the United Nations advisor on AI. He also teaches at UC Irvine. He was amazing. Arvind Vijay, co-founder of Consolidated Analytics, was able to have him come up, and he also had another gentleman talk about quantum cybersecurity. I mean, it was a great conference. And so right now, the tail end of this conference is a women's empower event. So the team from DC, I think Marsha's here, and some other people are here. So they're over in the conference room, and tons of registrants there. I think over 350 people. So just an incredible networking event, great event, good way to finish the week. especially with you all at the last word. And by the way,
Yeah.
I think press the flesh means like shaking hands, like actually like shaking hands. I was gonna just do a quick little AI search and see if there's any negative connotation as Courtney
Oh,
is
there's
referring to.
clearly-
I would not AI search press
Yeah.
the flesh. I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I just wouldn't.
Do it on somebody else's computer if you do. So
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I think Gen, what's the last one now? Z? I think Gen Z would still be frustrated with it.
yeah.
Well,
So what?
I mean,
when
my
Kyle
kids think everything I say is dorky. So, you know.
when Kyle was doing his talk in Nashville, two things he said that were well, he said a bunch of stuff that was memorable, but two that stood out for me, which probably will correlate with my maturity level. The first one is he called himself a snack. Apparently, that's a term. It's a thing. And the second thing is he was talking about getting belly to belly, which is kind of like, you know, pressing the flesh. And he put into AI asking for an image of belly to belly, and it came back with two, you know, middle-aged beer belly dudes with their guts hanging out, and they were belly to belly. So go with that, guys. Hey, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get into a couple juicy topics. So Monday next week kicks off the Mortgage Action Alliance week. It's the MBA's kind of weekly or yearly event to draw people in to participate in the Mortgage Action Alliance. So I'm going to add somebody to the stage, and we'll have to add KP back because we lost him. Here he comes, coming in hot. So on the screen, audience, you have two ways to either join the Mortgage Action Alliance or renew your membership with the Mortgage Action Alliance. You can scan the QR code. I promise it's a legit code. Or you can text MAA to 50457, and it'll take you through a quick process, maybe 30 seconds. You'll be locked and loaded for another year of your MA membership. A reminder for those that are not aware, it's free. Doesn't cost a dime for you. It just costs your time. And we need as many people as possible in the industry and around the industry to join MA and make your voice heard. The MBA has done a wonderful job, as has the Broker Action Coalition in the back, and NAM and AIM. I mean, all of our associations are hyper-focused on getting our voices heard in DC and making it easy for all of us to participate. So I will take down that image, that QR code, and I'll throw up a banner in a little bit just as a reminder. But MAA campaign week is next week. We are one of the 100 companies at FinLocker participating, and just we need to get over 75,000 people involved to really have our voice heard in DC.
How's my audio?
Your audio is wonderful.
So I went off camera real quick to do a search on Grok, which is the X version of ChatGPT, and it went through 20 different resources. And the summary is, it's not necessarily bad. Press the flesh is a term used in politics, and it means shaking hands. The only bad thing about it is that it might come off as insincere. That was the only thing that it said. It didn't actually make any other kind of reference or whatever. I don't know if Courtney wants to expand, or if we just want to, Viking funeral pyre this topic. I
think we
love
could throw open kimono on with it. Like, I think we could pull a couple of these old adages, and maybe some of the essence of the patriarchy that still lives in mortgage. Let's toss it all on the fire and send it out on a Friday.
I think there are a lot of really high-powered women in politics that shake hands, but I try not to use it either, because I try not to use it either because it does seem like a dated term. But I'm glad, Brian, that you highlighted the Mortgage Action Alliance.
Absolutely.
It was the last thing we talked about when we wrapped up Mortgage Innovator Conference on stage with our high-powered CEO, Susan Milazzo, who's been there 22 years. She's a total badass. Her and her team really helped, make this just an absolute successful event. And one of the things that works for us at PRMG is that we have someone who owns, rallying the troops, circling the wagons when it comes to any kind of MAW alerts. And so, we have someone, like, it's their job that when these come out, that they make sure they go out. And of course I'm always tied to it, so I'm reminding the team, like, hey, we got to get this out. We have 3 channels, and so depending on what the issue is, like if it's trigger lead reform, we will push it out to all of our TPO clients, so all of our correspondents and our brokers. If it's something California related, we'll push it out to people that just live in California, including our employees. And so, I think showing that QR code is great. Like, there's some individuals on here, but if there are any individuals, go back to your organization and make a concerted effort to get someone to own distributing when these campaigns go out. Obviously, MAW week, Action week, next week is a big time to kind of do that. So I encourage anyone listening to get someone to run point and make it organized, so you can get dozens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people to assemble, because politicians don't listen to us unless we actually say something.
I learned this yesterday. I probably relearned it. I interviewed Bill Kilmer and Jamie Lynch from MBA on my Loan Officer Life podcast. Shameless plug. It is live today on YouTube, and it will be replayed tomorrow morning on LinkedIn Live. I put a link in the comments for y'all. But they reminded me that anybody can be a member of MAW. You do not necessarily have to be with a company that's a member of MBA directly. And so anyone that's in and around housing, real estate finance should join MAW. And there's all kinds of great reasons for what we just been talking about in terms of making our voices heard. But if you're a loan officer, you should join MAW, not only to support the industry and then, also the consumers that you serve, but there's an amazing content that MBA puts out through MAW that makes you a more informed advocate and advisor in your communities. So join MAW, guys. Come on, let's go. Okay.
MAW knows best.
Yeah, I was telling when I was out with Kyle. Kyle's from Texas. I said, "Ma, that's what Texans call mom, isn't it?" Another dad joke.
Can we still say mothers know best, or is that timeless?
So, guys, news of the week. We kind of opened the week with some news out of Pontiac, Michigan, not too far from where Courtney and I are, where United Wholesale Mortgage (UWM) announced that they're bringing servicing in-house. I think they even announced at the same time that they partnered with ICE from a technology perspective. And so, is this a direct response to Rocket, Mr. Cooper? Was this always part of the game plan, the strategy? And what does it mean for the industry and for the brokers that, work with UWM? And Courtney, since you live and breathe servicing every minute of every day, we'll let you kind of kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do that, they're asking for the link to join MA in the chat. So that's obviously far more important than our mortgage servicing gossip.
I'll put that in the comments.
What's up, Kurt from Monroe, Michigan? We're just gonna whoop whoop anybody from Michigan that happens to join this. I thought it was not shocking, right, that UWM, particularly after the Rocket Cooper announcement, is saying, well, we're gonna do our own servicing too. UWM has a lot of advanced technological stuff and things, right up there in Pontiac, Michigan, and it makes Detroit an interesting hub for mortgage and mortgage servicing, interestingly, right? The bummer about the news, I think, is the fact that they announced a partnership with ICE Black Knight immediately following that, because it begs an obvious question: how tech forward can your servicing operation be if it's on a 60-year-old mainframe? Question mark, right? I obviously have a very clear answer to that question. And I think that that's the problem in mortgage servicing, that when we're making big investments like this, there's not another solution, and there really isn't another complete solution. It's really more strategically, how do you approach that? And so I'm excited for the folks up at UWM. I'm excited to see, how they show us, right, that they are going to, I mean, in a lot of their announcements, they talk about the deployment of AI, and everybody talks about the AI, in all of these things. But I think that maybe the more interesting shift in the marketplace, BB, is a shift away, right, from the concept of subservicing.
Mm-hmm.
Subservicing was an answer to MSR owners for a period of time, because let's do fund servicing facts, because everyone in this crowd wants to hear fund servicing facts. You need to hold about 250,000 units to be able to service loans cheaper, right, than a subservicer in the market, right? But the net is servicing is about the same. And as much as I've been a champion for servicing and better servicing, I mean, it is my career, right? That's my whole career. I think that maybe putting servicing in its place and saying that it needs to be an easy, efficient, unremarkable experience, and maybe keeping the pressure of recapture, retention, and good consumer tools and all of this stuff in the sales place where you're actually making money, really does make more sense. And so it goes to, if we're really looking for the most highly efficient, most highly controlled environment, why do we keep going back to companies in the industry, question mark, that haven't really delivered any of those forward thinking solutions, question mark? Certainly UWM has the money and the prestige to make those investments, and I hope they do. And I genuinely hope that the Cooper Rocket paradigm brings us something interesting in innovation and technology and servicing as well. Do I believe that they will? I don't know. Time will tell. I hope so. I think that there's a lot of smart people working in both places, but I would be curious, KP, kind of your thoughts. If you're a smaller, or you don't want to hold MSR, right? And you don't want to hold an MSR of any scenario, how do you think about where your servicing should go? Or do you just not think about servicing as a part of that life cycle? And do you think we have to? I mean, Rocket's saying that they want to keep everything forever, and they're going to have 1 in 6 mortgages and all of this other stuff, right? And they'll keep it in its continuum. But do you think you have to hold servicing to be a player in this marketplace?
What servicing software do you guys use?
We are using predominantly Aspen Grove and Salesforce. We've decided to limit the use of the legacy system only to what it was originally designed to do, which is process payments and report things to investors. So instead of building our mainframe within it, we've said no, thank you. And so our system of record is actually a data field that is built for a customer of one.
Yeah, and I think you just made the point for what the strategy is for United Wholesale. I'll just say I think it's a brilliant move on their part. I think I called it a couple weeks ago. I said they're just going to become a servicer more than they already are. They're the number one lender in America. They're a massive servicer, and instead of subbing it out, they can just use MSP, which to use your words is just a mainframe. It's just a data field. Like the actual act of servicing it's not new. It's like I was kind of shocked that when PennyMac got sued by Black Knight for being in contract with Black Knight on MSP, and then PennyMac built their own servicing software. The lawsuit basically said you just have to pay your contract, but you get to keep the intellectual property. There's no there. Like PennyMac has the right to build their own servicing software, and so whether it's what you guys are using or what PennyMac has built or Sagent or MSP, that's just one function of it. Now, I think what you're kind of referring to is that, well, how does that tie into the borrower experience? How does that tie into recapture? How does that tie into, what a servicer can do with the consumer? And I think, and to your point, it goes well beyond just the servicing software. I mean, we sub out at PRMG to Sinlar to handle the servicing duties, including default servicing, and they're on MSP. I have a loan through them, and they reskinned that website about 1.5 years ago, and it's really good. I really like it. Like when I log in, which is rarely because I don't need to because it's on auto pay, but when I log in, I love the way it's dialed in and the way all the boxes kind of float around, and I can get whatever information I need as a consumer, but then also a mortgage professional. So I really like the software. So I think it's a big win for ICE Mortgage Technology. ICE it's very interesting. It's like they took all this data that they bought from Black Knight, and I think they said publicly that just on their data alone in 2024, they made $2 billion, $300 million in free cash flow at ICE. And what was cool about that is then they were able, they're able now with all of their lenders who use Encompass as a front end origination system. I think they're able to spend money and develop it, make it better. The whole ICE team was here. They were, them and Cotality were the two premier sponsors at MIC. They had a whole army of people here at ICE talking about all the innovation, all the stuff they're doing around just a holistic bar approach. And so you brought up Salesforce as something you guys use at CMG. UWM is huge on Salesforce. Like they use Salesforce Services Cloud. I've been to many Dreamforce events in the Bay Area and got to listen to Justin Glass, talk about all the stuff they do. I mean, their internal ticketing, their routing, their task routing, and obviously as a CRM, they could dev out Salesforce however they want. They're really good at using Salesforce. And so I think the ICE thing is just to tie in the contract for the back end servicing function using MSP. But UWM's got 1,700 developers and engineers on staff. I mean, they're going to get 1,700. They're the number one lender in America. They're going to get it right on the servicing play. And so when the Mr. Cooper acquisition is complete by Rocket, and they do own 1 in 6 mortgages, UWM is defending their loans and their brokers by going this route. And so as an originator built by originators for originators, and we're originator first, we have different kinds of ways to stay in contact with the bar after closing. So whether we're servicing it through our sub-servicer Sinlar on MSP, or we sell the loan, we have different ways where bars stay in contact with us. I mean, they call us because we were the original originator, and I think that is a very powerful relationship. But we talk about this battle between servicer and originator all the time. You think about, let's say we have $2 trillion in loans this year, 1.5 trillion of it's purchase. So originators are still overwhelmingly winning all the business in the year. And so servicers are really good at recapture with a low CAC, customer acquisition cost, on a recapture and retention. But there's just not a lot of refis right now. I mean, certainly compared to the amount of purchase business in the market. So I think it's a brilliant move on UWM. I think they're going to get it right. I think they kind of had to do it. And if not now, when? And so, actually the only thing that I think is, like the most interesting is when in his earnings call, he said he can get a 6, 6.5, or 7 multiple on selling MSRs. And I'm like, I wanted to text Matt and be like, hey bro, where are you selling it to? Asking for a friend. I mean, that's incredible. Yeah. So, and some of that is, if they think their retention of loans, is very good and they can book that from an accounting perspective at that multiple, it does make their balance sheet look good. The higher multiple you book MSRs on, obviously it cuts both ways, because if they run off and there's a refi boom and you don't recapture and retain those loans, you lose it off your balance sheet. And so if you, I'm not saying they're booking at 6, 6.5, or 7. This is what he was quoted in the press. But if you do book it at a higher multiple and it runs off, you have to take off the higher multiple against your MSR, against your balance sheet. And so, but that's what every servicer has always done. I mean, we've always had to compete against pure servicers, and we're like, how the hell are they getting this pricing? And a lot of them are just really good at recapture and retention. So, they're saying we're going to keep this loan and book it at a higher multiple, therefore put it in the rate sheet up front to give you a better price as an originator when you get the loan. And it's just a numbers game that every company has to figure out how they're going to play. I mean, CMG has good pricing, and so if you think you're good at recapture and retention, you can say, yeah, I'm going to keep this loan for 8, 9, 10, 12 years. And I can book it at, a multiple of, owning it for 6 or 7, and so, and just deal with whatever fallout might come when, the 10-year treasury goes up or down every quarterly, filing of your financials, and just, you have to deal with whatever, you see, like you always read about these, like a lot of people on this call probably read like, how did Loan Depot lose so much money and Guild lose so much money and all these companies lose so much money? And a lot of it is like an accounting rebalance of the value of the portfolio based on the 10-year treasury going up or down and or runoff. And so servicers play a different game, and it's a big person's game. It takes a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of capital. And KP, you brought up a good point around, we just saw quarterly earning reports come out from UWM and Rocket and Guild and Loan Depot. There's probably one or two I'm missing, New Res. And I think everybody, everyone kind of buckets their mortgage operations in 2 buckets. You've got your servicing asset, and then you've got your originations business. And it looked like, from what I saw, and I didn't dig into everybody's reports, but I think everybody made money on the origination side of the business in Q1. And then all of those same logos I just named all wrote down servicing to some level, right? Some more than others based on where they booked it initially.
I would just say that Q1 is interesting because January and February are typically losers from an origination standpoint. And then March is your profitable month, which can bail out the quarter.
Yeah.
And so for us, it just barely did, right? Yeah. And we have scale, but it doesn't, Q1, I don't think Q1 may have been profitable for originators as a whole, but March and April were.
Right.
And enough to cover up losses in January and February. And so, and so shout out to all these lenders out there that, like, if they're cutthroat, they could have cut a ton of jobs at the end of the year and early beginning this year, knowing that January and February are light. But when you see rates in like a decent spot, we're in the 6 range, right? High 6s to mid 6s. You saw that little tick down in rates after Liberation Day, and 10-year treasury got to 386, and rates got like around 6 3/8. I saw, some 5.875s out there. Obviously different coupon, different stack. Maybe you had to pay, but hats off to the originators for rallying and taking in all those loans when they came rushing in, having the systems in place to do it. Again, there's still 75% of loans are purchases, which really favors the origination channels.
So guys, we managed to spend the whole time talking about UWM and servicing. So fun times. Let's do a little round robin last word. Courtney, what you got?
I'm just gonna say, assembling a servicer in the way that Kevin's proposing is a hell of a lot harder than you think. And I would love. Nope, you mansplained it the whole time. So I would love to help anyone in the mortgage servicing industry do it better at any time, whether it's UWM, whether it's Rocket Cooper, whether it's other. Better innovation in servicing is better for all of us. It's better for customers. It's better for understanding. It's better for education. So DM me on LinkedIn, because that's what the kids say. But like, seriously, we need to do better. And I am front of line to help anybody who wants to do that.
Love that.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I didn't say it was easy. I said UWM can do it. They're the number 1 lender with
they better be able to do it. They've got the second most money in the marketplace, or the most money in the marketplace. I would expect that, but doing it well is so freaking hard. So that's why we say it.
It is hard, and they've done nothing but, I would argue the impossible. Those guys, they've been crushing it. So my money's on them. Yeah, it's not easy. We like our cash. So if PennyMac or West Alliance Bank or Freedom or whoever wants to pay us a ton of money because they're really good at it, great, we'll take the cash. There's just 4 of us. So we love we love cash and being debt free. Although I'd say about 30% of our balance sheet is a servicing portfolio. But I agree. I mean, it's not easy, but that's why not everyone does it. And it's a different mindset. A servicer mindset is different than an originator mindset. It's just, it's hard to be both. That's the really hard thing to do, is to be both. And you guys do a good job of that at CMG.
Awesome. Well, here's our collective last word. As a reminder, guys, your voice counts. You have an opportunity. I say you actually have an obligation, not an opportunity. I think we all are obligated to advocate for our consumers and our business. And the Mortgage Bankers Association has made it very easy, easier than a servicer, very easy for us to participate, have our voices heard. Scan the QR code, text MAA to 50457, join or renew today, and help us help you. KP, Courtney, have a great weekend. Audience, we'll see you back here next Friday on The Last Word, a Chrisman commentary weekly show. See y'all.